Hello, hello, everybody. I see everyone coming on in at once. As time fills in for the next few minutes, I'm sure a lot more people will be pouring in. There's over close to 200 people who registered, and right now there's 35 who are popping into the waiting room. So I just want to give everyone a few minutes. But in the meantime, while you're waiting, please share who you are, where you live, and what you do in the chat. Hey, Michael. Nice to see you again. It's been a while. Congratulations to Lisa. And hi, Ahmed. Lots of familiar faces here, or familiar names, I should say. Please share your name, where you live, and what you do. Okay. People are still coming in, so I'm just going to give it a little bit more time. And I'm happy to introduce myself first, just for the purposes of the chat. Hi, Whitney. Oh, wow. We got Michelle, who's a school counselor in Boca. You're my next door neighbor. We have Katrin from Switzerland. Hi, Katrin. James from Faversham. Wow. We got Calgary, Alberta. We have Fallon. Hi, Fallon. Michael. Hi, Michael. Nice to see you. Alyssa. Nice. Tatiana from Brazil. How cool. A full-time published author. I love it. Hi, Kara. Got a lot of familiar faces here. That's awesome. Okay. Now, if you can just share in the chat what you're hoping to get out of today's session. All right. So now there's 50 people. The numbers are still going up. So just bear with me for about another minute or two, and we will get started. Hi, Katie. Okay, hoping for tools to manage ADHD. Hi, Josh. Josh works for my husband's company. I love that you're here. I got to tell him if you don't mind. Love it, Nicole. Melinda, that's awesome. So you're looking to see how you can help your husband. I love supportive spouses, and you might have a two. Totally normal. We're usually attracted to people who are similar to us. Alyssa, trying to learn as much as possible about ADHD. Stefan, Jenny, controlling outbursts. Katrin, hoping to understand better how to accept and channel my emotions. RSD. We will definitely be talking about RSD. And Josh, good stuff. Kara, pivoting and transitioning in emotional states, a continued challenge I'd like to work on. I'm sure all of us can relate to what's going on in the chat. Nancy, pragmatic tips, absolutely. In not reacting from a place of emotion when triggered, we're going to be talking about that. Whitney, I'm hoping to gain a little bit more insight into ADHD in one way I can help myself or some of my students. Yes, you can definitely use this with your students as well. Okay, awesome. We got Sherry, who's newly diagnosed, and Sila, I hope I'm saying your name correctly. You were diagnosed earlier this year as an adult, so you have lots to learn. Well, we always have lots to learn, regardless of what stage we've been diagnosed. And I love it that there's parents here trying to help their daughters with ADHD. Adriana, Katie, hoping to better match my sometimes volatile emotions to my true self. 100%. We're going to be doing that in today's lesson too. So you guys have come to the right place. Glad that the messaging was appropriate, and hopefully that thing that you were talking about, you'll be able to walk away with too. So as we talk about whatever it is that you shared in the chat, try to hold on to that and look for it in our conversation. Okay, let's get started. So there's 55 people here now. I think we're ready to go. I'm going to just share my screen with you. And can you just give me a thumbs up if you can see my screen, because I can't see if you can see it. And when I say thumbs up, can you give me a yes if you can see my shared screen, and a no if you cannot see it? No, Catherine, yes. Nope, 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 no. Yes, no. I'm confused. Some people can. Okay. Let's try this again. Entire screen share. Anyone? Nope. All right. Let's try this one more time. Masterclass. Okay, not the shared screen. I don't know what the heck is going on, but I will fix it. How about now? Thumbs up if you can see it. All right, what I'm going to do is share the file instead of share my screen, and that should do it. Thank you guys for being patient. All right, file, healing ADHD. Let's see. Okay, so we're uploading and processing my presentation, which might take about 2 minutes. So in the meantime, while this comes up, if you could just share with me if you have had any help with your ADHD in the past, or if this is a totally new topic for you, in the chat, please. All right, so you can see my slides now, right? Oh, God. Okay, Katie, you're awesome. Michael, you downloaded the PowerPoint. Sherry, thanks for sharing. Salah. Okay, you guys can all see it now. I have a lot of experience doing presentations, and I'm a former teacher, so got to think on the spot. Thanks, everyone, for your patience. Okay, so we are here to talk about how to heal your ADHD and transform your self-esteem. So most of you know my information and why you're here today, because it's very evident what you're trying to get out of today's session. So just a little bit about me, and there's a reason why I'm telling you this. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Brooke Schnittman, and I have a background in special education, but growing up and even into my young adult life, I was undiagnosed with ADHD, and I was bullied. I had social anxiety, had pragmatic issues, had processing issues, had a reading learning disability. And I didn't get why I was being bullied, but it was really because I wasn't really aware of my behaviors and how I was coming off to people. And I had done therapy on and off for a good portion of my life, my adult life and young adult. And it was in 2017 that I started getting coached, and I didn't even know what it was. And then it was after that point that I finally realized that I actually had ADHD and started my own company to help others with ADHD. And now we have 7 coaches that are making a really large impact with the ADHD community. And I see a lot of you here who have or are in our coaching programs currently. And I commend you for coming here because I know that you guys are lifelong learners. So another thing, as I mentioned, I am newly diagnosed at age 35, even though I've worked with thousands of ADHDers since 2006 in special education, teacher roles, and administration in New York, and started my company 4 years ago in 2018. Okay. So the tools that I'm going to share you are things that I've learned over the past 16 years of working with individuals with ADHD and also healing from ADHD myself and the experiences I've been through. So if you stay until the end, I'm going to give you a free gift. It's completely up to you. You can feel free to leave if you need to before the session is over, but this gift is only for the people who do stay until the end. And as we start out, for those of you who've been to my workshops before, you know, in my teaching backgrounds, I love to do activities and make this as real and engaging as possible. So what I ask all of you now is if you have a blank piece of paper, so like a printer paper, a sheet that you can rip out of a notebook, it would be really helpful, or even a Post-it, anything, an index card. Take that piece of paper and draw a heart as big as you can from corners to corners. And when you're done drawing that heart, I want you to just say done in the chat. So what I would like you to do now, if for those of you who didn't hear my instructions, is take a piece of paper, any type of paper, draw a heart, and make it as big as possible. Awesome. Okay. Now, if you're still drawing the heart, that's okay. If you're still looking for a piece of paper, that's okay. The next thing is pretty simple. I don't want you to go overboard here. I know where we can be all or nothing type of thinkers here. But all I want you to do is rip the heart, and you don't need to cut it out from the piece of paper, but just rip the heart into a couple of pieces, 2 or 3, 4 pieces. Just rip it right in front of you. Take a piece of paper and legitimately rip your heart. And when you're done ripping, I want you to put the pieces back together in the formation of a heart. Don't put tape on it. Just try to put it together like a puzzle piece. So rip it and then put it back together. And give me done when you're done doing that as well. Okay, awesome. So in the chat, I want you to write down what you see in your heart now that you put it back together. What do you notice? In the chat, now that you put your heart pieces together, what do you notice on your heart? Cracks, rips, lines, the torn spaces. Awesome. It doesn't fit together perfectly, deformed heart imperfection. Some pieces are larger than others, cracks, not the same as before, cracks for sure. So you guys are seeing the same things, jagged, rough edges, not even, pieces that have different sizes, doesn't fit, not perfect, still looks like a heart, but it's clear it's been ripped and put back together, wrinkled and perfect, cracks, perfect. Okay, so you guys are getting it. So you're all seeing the same thing. So the point of this activity is just to engage all of you that if you've had a traumatic experience, right, we all start with the same type of landscape, right? But if you've had these traumatic experiences, if you've been bullied, if you've seen something that you haven't liked and it's affected you, you go through these experiences where you have these torn pieces of your heart. And even with all the healing that you've done or you will be doing or you're currently doing, those pieces are still there. Even though we might have the tools to have a full, complete heart now, those broken pieces are still there. And you're still reminded of it a lot. Okay. So how does that play into what we're going to be talking about today? So for those of you who've been to my workshops before, we talk about this a lot. I'm going to go into it quickly and you'll see how the broken heart activity bleeds into the next couple of slides. So Dr. Thomas Brown talks about executive functions, and I'm sure almost all of you have probably heard of them before. Regardless if you have ADHD or not, we all have executive functions. And what he does is he puts them into 6 separate clusters, and the functions continuously work together, usually rapidly and unconsciously, but they help each individual manage many tasks of their life. And the functions appear in basic forms in young children and gradually become more complex as the brain matures throughout childhood, adolescence, and early adulthood. So our brains mature at about 25 and sometimes even 30. So our executive functions become more complex at that time. So everyone at a certain time has occasional impairments in their executive functions, but individuals with ADHD are much more likely to develop difficulty and use these functions in greater difficulty than others do at the same age and developmental level. So even though we, might be able to do special interests like playing sports, video games for kids, art, even your job that you can hyper focus on, the ADHD symptoms might be hard to notice in these areas. However, we could still have chronic difficulty with ADHD and our executive function, executive dysfunction. So essentially, the way that this model works is when you have ADHD, you are struggling in one or more of all these areas. And this is present for at least 6 months of your life. And in 2 or more areas of your life. So it could be happening at work, it could be happening at home. And when you're having difficulty activating, so that includes your organization, your prioritization, activating to work, so that's like getting started, your focus, so that includes being able to shift your focus, so doing one task, then moving over to another, and then coming back. Effort, regulating alertness, sustaining effort, your processing speed, how long it takes you to do something, managing frustration, which is emotions, memory, action, all of those clusters, when working together, you can get very emotional if you have a deficit in one or more of these areas. So that's where the emotional regulation comes in, which ADHDers have a hard time doing because we have these deficits in getting started, focusing and sustaining focus, monitoring our actions, processing speed, modulating our emotions, every one of these work together, and your emotional well-being is impacted because of the deficits in these areas. So what does that mean for us? Because of our ADHD, we have hard times with modulating our emotions, regulating our emotions, RSD, all of these things that you probably experienced before and heard about before. The human population in general without ADHD have 80% thoughts that are negative. And with that being said, 95% of the general population's thoughts are repetitive. So think about it this way, ADHD or not, if you have 95% of your thoughts that are repetitive, and then 80%, which is the majority of your thoughts, are negative, think about how often your thoughts are negative. It's pretty much all the time, right? So this is it's not a natural state to think positively and to heal your emotional regulation with ADHD or without ADHD, since our thoughts are mostly negative. However, while the brain is prone to negativity, it's also flexible and it's neuroplastic, and we can reprogram it to be happy and think differently. So there's a whole nature and nurture thing here as well. Okay, so here's our next activity. In the comments, answer yes or no. Do you get defensive when others point out something you do not like or agree with? In the chat, yes or no. It's okay, I'll start. Even with all the work in the world, do you get defensive when other people point out the things that you do not like or agree with? Always. My son does yes. Okay. Thank you for being honest. And examples of it, absolutely. All depends on how they frame it. And also it depends on, if you trust them, what you think about them, because it can depend on who the person is. But examples of conversations that can make you defensive are ones where you believe to have received upsetting criticism or feedback, or where you have felt criticized before. So, you can think of an example potentially from a boss, from a friend, from a partner, from a family member. RSD, Melinda, is rejection sensitive dysphoria, and it's very common. There's no medical diagnosis for it. It's on the DSM-5. However, many individuals with ADHD struggle with rejection sensitive dysphoria. Okay. So again, same question. Do you get defensive when other people point out something you do not like or agree with? Here are some examples of ways that we might respond to this situation. So protecting your character or distancing yourself from making a mistake, blaming other people or outside forces, or judging that person to make yourself feel better. These are all ways that are natural to respond when we can become defensive. Sound familiar? Yeah. Okay, so next activity. Before you answer any of these questions, I want all of you to think of a situation where you had a difficult conversation this week or received negative feedback or criticism. I want you to think of that situation, and if you feel comfortable sharing it in the chat, please put that situation in the chat, because I know that a bunch of us can relate to a difficult conversation or a situation where you've received negative feedback or criticism. So this can have happened this past week, but if you haven't been able to think of something that has happened this past week, try thinking a little bit further back to anything in life where you've received negative feedback. It could be from your boss, from your partner, from your friend, from your child. When you think of this situation or difficult conversation, if you feel comfortable with it, please put it in the chat. So your husband said, I don't think about what he wants and just do what I want regardless. Basically, I'm selfish and one track, LOL. Okay. True, but ouch. I've been skipping school lately and my mom was asking me how school is going. So there's an assumption there that she knows that you're not going to school or you're getting defensive about it because you're not really sure how to respond. Last night talking about finances with my husband. Finances are such a struggle. Who likes finances here? Seriously. And I've had some mistakes recently that I shouldn't have. Well, that's why those conversations are super important to have with your spouse at least once a month. It's so uncomfortable to get there, but if you're sharing finances, it's super helpful. Okay, you felt attacked and shamed. Michael, you too. I relate on the finances talk. Me too. Literally in the process of having those conversations with my husband, everyone was getting feedback in a class and I felt defensive, even though it was just a neutral suggestion, right? So it wasn't attack to you, but you felt defensive. Husband says you don't listen, also makes me feel shame. I'm sorry about that. That's tough. Sila makes me fear that my partner will leave me, even if it's irrational based on the level of conflict. Yeah. And Melinda, with a hubby piece, I'm sure there's a piece of you that is nervous while you're talking to him and you are actually listening, but it might appear that you're not. Okay. Yeah, that's tough. Being a CPA and your wife not trusting you to handle money. Yeah, so I see a lot of people here saying there's financial issues, neutral suggestions that you can take too seriously, husbands or partners feeling like you're not listening to them, or even a question as a criticism, like Josh. So I see that Katrin, you wrote that, but Josh had wrote, your mom asking you about how school's going, but inside your mind that you've been skipping school. So that was it might be an honest question with her not knowing, and now you're getting defensive about it. My daughter telling me that I've asked that question before, made the same comment multiple times. Yep. From my dad's girlfriend, always commenting on the state of my house and room and materials I collect for projects to sell, and always saying, wouldn't you feel so much better if you just got rid of all of this? And things like, I always feel like asking questions about how things are going, but in a judgmental way. Yeah. Okay. So I can certainly relate to a lot of that, especially the contractor thing, Butch. I mean, that's never fun. All right. So now that you all have experiences here, what I would like you to do is answer the first 3 questions. How did you feel after this experience? What did you do at that moment? What are you really, insert whatever feeling you're feeling about. So if you're feeling angry, frustrated, nervous, what are you really feeling nervous about? Or what are you really feeling sad about? What are you feeling anxious about? So I know it's a very open question, but it's meant to be open so you can think big. So in the meantime, just answer the first 3 questions. How did you feel after this experience? What did you need at that moment? Again, this is an open question, so it's meant for you to answer however this question speaks to you. What did you need at that moment? What are you really feeling blank about, whatever that feeling is? Answer those 3 questions, and then we'll answer the last one once we move on to the next slide. So I see feeling irritated, misunderstood. What did you need at the moment? So there's a lot of feelings here. Attacked, belittled, defensive, angry. Adam, Madison, all the people who've answered the feeling, what did you need in the moment? Answer that for me in the chat. Silence. Yes. Sounds like you know yourself. Okay. So Madison needs silent in the moment. What else would you guys say that you need? Reassurance, understanding, more words of encouragement, reassurance, break from the conversation. Yep, break from the conversation is huge. Grace for forgetting. Okay. Silence, grace, break, reassurance. Love it. I love how much conversation is going on in the chat right now. Awesome. Okay. Now, what I would like you all to do is on the next slide, I want you to look at the different ways that you can approach the situation or the difficult conversation and pick one or multiple of them and answer if you would do things differently using one of those approaches. And once you pick, so basically you're going to answer what could you have done differently by looking at the options in the next slide. Once you pick an option in the next slide, I want you to write the option that might work for you in the situation in the chat. And then if we get an opportunity, I might bring someone up to share theirs and be coached. So what could you have done differently? Here are some tips on when you're dealing with a difficult conversation or situation. All of you have your situations or conversations. Which tip could you have used and implemented to do differently? So we can only control ourselves. We can't control other people. So what could you have done differently? Love it. So know my triggers, Sophie, Katrin, name feelings, Megan, 8 and 10, assume good intentions, offer yourself compassionate forgiveness. Another, assume good intentions, buy some time. A lot of times when we're really frustrated and emotional, it's hard to get out a positive response that's going to be productive. So we need to go to a place of calm before we respond if we are very emotional about it. So buying some time to say, hey, I just need to process what you said, or please give me a moment, I'll get back to you. And you can wait as long as you need, whether it's 20 minutes, 24 hours. It's, you're in control of how you respond to something. So Tatiana, what I mean by 5 is using I statements. So when you have a conversation with a person that is about a situation or a difficult conversation, I don't like when this happens. I feel angry about blah, blah, or I feel embarrassed about blah, 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 when this happens. So you're taking the feeling and you're owning the feeling where you're not blaming the other person, but you're just expressing how you feel. That's what an I statement is. Assume good intentions. Great. Okay, so would anyone like to be coached based on their situation? So I know all of you guys are putting your tips in the chat. but any specific questions to the tips or your situation. So, Katrin, how do we get to know our triggers best? Often they are so buried under emotions to really see what is a trigger. Great question. So triggers, in my opinion, would be when you're starting to get a headache, when you have like a tense back, shoulders, you feel like your fists are, you're holding your fists, or you're getting nervous, you're biting your thumb, maybe you're walking in circles, you're over explaining yourself. There's different sensations and feelings and things that you do when you start feeling a certain way. So that's what I mean by identifying triggers. Clenching teeth, exactly. Okay, Fallon, you'll volunteer? Awesome. Let me see if I can bring you up. Okay. Fallon, what you need to do is request to speak. There's a hand on the bottom, and you should be able to press that. And then from there, I can bring you up. Okay, Fallon, I just invited you as a presenter. Okay, so we have Fallon who joined the room. How you doing?
How is everybody? I'm good.
Nice to see you.
Yeah, same here.
Okay, so you need some clarity.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you start and share? I see that you've been putting a lot in the chat. Share what your situation or difficult conversation was, and the tips that you might want to choose, but where you need clarity. So start from the beginning.
Yeah, sure. So last Friday night was a difficult day. I had been pretty upset all day about the Supreme Court decision, and I had sent my father-in-law an article from the New York Post and a rather snarky text, which I kind of regret, kind of don't regret. I don't really know. But I then proceeded to text my sister-in-law, his daughter, and was like, hey, I just sent this to Dad. Like, oh, well. And it turned into a fight, which I was not expecting. And so she just sort of came at me, guns blazing. And it was really interesting because she accused me of things that she actually does that I don't do. And so I got really angry and ended the conversation as soon as I could. And so for me, I put that, like, what I could have done differently is that I should have known my triggers and not spoken to her about it in the first place, because I know that she's a wild card and she can flip and come at you. And I try not to get down into it with her too much. But I'm unsure of if I handled the whole thing the right way, or if I was even like valid in the emotions that I was feeling at the time. Like, did I let my lack of impulse control have me do something that was probably inappropriate, say something to my father-in-law that I probably shouldn't have said, that I now have to like deal with. But at the same time, I'm battling with, well, I shouldn't have to feel uncomfortable about saying something that might have made somebody else feel uncomfortable because of decisions that they made.
What was the goal of you sharing that?
I guess I was looking for solidarity.
Did you think that you would find it from
my sister-in-law?
Yeah.
I thought that I might, because her and I have been of the same mindset a lot in recent years. And we've kind of gotten to the point where like we've had it with everybody else's opinions. And so I thought that maybe we were going to be on the same page about this. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't have texted her anyway. But I didn't stop to consider how badly it could have gone.
Okay. Okay. So what's the lesson learned there then?
So I'm not sure. I don't know if the lesson is that I acted impulsively and did something that I probably shouldn't have done that I now can't take back, or should I have known what my triggers were in the first place and not looked for validation in what I did and just redirected myself another way?
Well, you were looking for solidarity and you found it from her before. So you thought that that was someone you can trust in this topic and they would share a similar mindset to you.
Yeah.
And when that happened, that was not, in fact, the case.
No.
So how would you have known otherwise?
I should have. She's not somebody that I really can trust, and I know that deep down. But I keep hoping that it's changed. So I think I was hoping for the best case scenario, and what I got was the worst case scenario. But I took a risk. I took a risk with somebody that I know, comes out swinging at times. And, it's when you least expect it, she comes for you. So, really, I probably should have known better than to even engage with her.
Okay. Listen, we are risk takers as ADHD. Sometimes we, see how far we can go, even if there's a puddle and you keep stepping in the puddle, you keep stepping in it because maybe eventually you'll think that like it won't bother you and it's still there. So sometimes we do things that we know might have negative consequences, but we just want to see how far we can go. So in this situation, you had a feeling and you tested it, and now you know. And what can you do differently next time? Or do you want to do anything differently next time?
Yeah, I think next time I would likely keep my opinions to myself and not engage with her. And probably try to find a different way to channel my emotions, because I think I just let it get the better of me. And then it's, so for me, my heart starts to race and I start picking at my cuticles, and those are my triggers when I get activated by something. And so I probably should have noticed those warning signs.
There you go. And then there might be some other people that you could talk to that you can confide in that won't judge you in those types of issues. Yeah. Or perhaps have a different strategy where you process it yourself. If you can't trust anyone to.
Ooh, I think we're frozen. I think we're frozen, Brooke. I don't know if you can hear me or not.
Oh, I'm back. I didn't lose you guys.
No, we were here.
I was talking. I'm like, it's so strange that Fallon's not saying anything. So I don't know where I lost everyone, but I was just saying, like, if there's someone else that you can trust and talk to, maybe confide in that person when you're feeling triggered, or know that your sister-in-law is not the person that you want to talk to when you're starting to feel this way. And if you happen to be in her space, just walk away so you don't feel like you have to have that conversation with her.
Sure.
Yeah. And we're verbal processors. So sometimes it's just easier to kind of talk this thing out with someone else with using these types of tips too. So like, hey, I feel this way about a certain situation. I feel like my fingers are tingling. I want to talk to this person about this. Like maybe I should wait a day to just like process what I'm feeling and see if that's a good person to talk to, or maybe I should, just like write things down. But I need someone to talk to. So people that you can trust usually are the best people to talk to with using these tips.
Okay.
Thank you, Fallon.
Yeah, no problem.
All right. So let me go back to Fallon, you're still here. I don't know how to kick you out. So
okay, I'll figure it out.
All right, cool. So as I mentioned before, most of our thoughts are negative. There's nature, there's nurture, you put it all together, and regardless of the work that you've done or you will be doing or you're currently doing, we're still going to continue to have those negative thoughts. But with those negative thoughts, there are strategies that you can use in the moment, or ways that you can heal things that you have gone through, like those rips in your heart, to help you heal your ADHD through emotional regulation work. So there's a ton of resources out there, but I don't want to just throw out resources that you might like read about and then not be able to apply the strategy. So I know that the ebook might be of help for you, so I would try that. Anything else? Also, I just want to remind new folks that meds are just another tool, and ADHD is a spectrum, so not everyone feels they want meds to manage their symptoms. Absolutely. It is a tool. It helps your brain work in different ways, but there's many different ways to improve your ADHD. Coaching, therapy, support all helps as well. This may be a silly and random question. Is your free ebook able for me to download into a Kindle e-reader? I'm a total boomer. I don't know about that, Catherine, but what you can do is just go on, if you have like Speechify, that could read it to you. It's not too wordy. I don't think it's downloadable on your e-reader. How to reject a guy with ADHD given he likely has RSD. Okay, so Zunera, I hope I'm saying your name correctly. How to reject a guy with ADHD given he likely has RSD. That's tough. It's really individual to you and the guy. I don't know your situation with him. I always like to say, treat others how you would like to be treated. So if you're rejecting him, do it gently. If you just be respectful, I really don't know his way of communicating, but I would just do it in a respectful and gentle way. Do you have any strategies to help improve your working memory? Madison, with that, I would say to read Jim Quick's book, Limitless. It's one of my favorite. That can certainly help you. And I also have an Instagram post about working memory as well. All right. So we are coming up to 4:00. So I appreciate all of you and all of the time that you have spent with me and entrusted in this masterclass. If you liked it, please feel free to put your information into the Google form and you will have priority on the list of people. Again, it's only limited to 8 people. It's an amazing course. And we will be doing more master classes weekly, except for next week. So we have a whole summer series. Look on our Instagram at Coaching with Brooke. We'll be posting it weekly. If you are subscribed to our newsletters or get emails from us, you'll get a link for our next masterclass as well. And it's all things ADHD all summer long. So it's been a pleasure. And thank you for attending this session today. Have a great day.